When I first saw Anthem back in E3 2017, I remember feeling a sense of cautious optimism. I wasn't particularly fond of how BioWare, once renowned for their single-player RPG experiences, were pushing for a Destiny-style shared-world action game, but I couldn't deny that the game looked gorgeous. The gameplay seemed compelling, and overall, I saw Anthem as a game with a lot of potential. But then Star Wars Battlefront 2 happened, blowing the lid wide open on just how far EA was willing to push the boundaries of predatory practices to make hundreds of millions in profit. So now I can't help but feel as though Anthem will face a similar fate, especially after EA CFO Blake Jorgensen had this to say following the Battlefront 2 debacle. "We're not giving up on the notion of microtransactions. We're learning and listening to the community in terms of how best to roll that out in the future, and there is more to come as we learn more. But I would say we're certainly not changing our strategy. We think the strategy of deeply engaging games, keeping the community together, and allowing people to play those games with new content coming via events over time is critical to the future of our business. We feel like we have nailed that in the sports games and will continue to try and find the best model that works in the non-sports games." So basically he's saying that EA is not going to back down on trying to find the perfect formula for their exploitative monetization schemes. With the heads of EA displaying such an apathetic attitude to the backlash, I would be hard-pressed to believe that Anthem won't suffer a similar fate and have its potential snuffed out by corporate greed. Now, analyst Michael Pachter expressed a more positive outlook in a statement he provided during an interview with website Gaming Bolt. When asked how he thinks EA will handle upcoming titles like Anthem, here's what he had to say. So the question for Anthem is, will EA screw it up like with Star Wars, or will they follow the Overwatch and Destiny roadmap, where the actual game is fun to play and the payments are ancillary? Because where they got into trouble with Star Wars was in making it pay to win. Had they limited themselves to purely cosmetic items, I don't think anyone would have said anything. So Anthem has the potential to be Destiny-like in terms of game experience, and Overwatch-like in terms of microtransactions offered, where it's all cosmetic and no one bats an eye. First things first, I wouldn't use Destiny 2 as a great example of how to implement microtransactions in a non-intrusive and non-controversial way. Yes, it's true that the Eververse and its Ingram loot boxes aren't nearly as bad as what EA intended to implement in Battlefront 2, since they mostly revolve around cosmetic items, but that doesn't mean that the Eververse hasn't had an adverse effect. The monetization potential that Bungie and Activision see in the Eververse has resulted in more resources being put into feeding the abhorrent marketplace with paywalled content one must gamble for, and less into fixing, balancing, updating, and expanding the core gameplay experience. Slowly but surely, the entire game is shifting to revolve around the Eververse right under our noses. It's starting to become less about playing and more about paying. Just look at the way Bungie handled the rushed and underwhelming Curse of Osiris DLC, the way they handled the Eververse-focused Dawning Holiday event, the way they're hiring a senior progression designer to create a player progression system that revolves around engrams, or how, according to Kotaku editor Jason Schreier, the reason Bungie focused so heavily on the Eververse for Destiny 2 was because they found it was too hard for them to release content consistently. So yeah, even if Anthem's loot boxes turn out to be purely cosmetic, that won't be enough to put my concerns at ease, especially with how Destiny 2 has proven time and again that even cosmetic-only loot boxes have the potential to mar and ruin a great experience. Loot boxes in general, these glorified gambling systems, are the bane of the gaming industry and should be nowhere near our games, especially when we're talking about AAA titles with a premium $60 price of admission. I don't want Anthem to be like Destiny 2. If it must have microtransactions, I would much prefer it be closer to something like Warframe, a free-to-play game with a generous and fair microtransaction system in which there is no element of chance involved. It's actually one of few games that gets microtransactions right, where it's not about strong-arming or manipulating players, but rather about upfront, honest transactions that allow players to voluntarily support the developers if they like what they played. Anyway, Michael Pachter continued by sharing an optimistic view on Anthem's potential sales, stating, quote, "But the truth is, BioWare has made several games that have sold around 5 million, so I'm very comfortable saying Anthem will sell at least that much. 7 or 8 million? Yes, if it's a great game. 10 or 20 million? Probably not, but we'll find out. Bungie did that with Destiny, Blizzard does that all the time. BioWare hasn't yet done that, but I'm encouraged because we have Casey Hudson back, since he's very capable, so I'm confident Anthem will be great, and it will do well on the whole." Can't say that I disagree with him there. The BioWare name by itself carries a lot of weight, even if Mass Effect Andromeda has tarnished it significantly. And it helps that so far, Anthem has looked like a very marketable game. So I also think Anthem will easily go to sell a couple million copies, though the hope is that it's all for the right reasons. Pachter finally concluded by acknowledging that EA has a lot to prove in 2018, stating, quote, "I think right now EA is on probation with gamers. I think everyone is watching everything they do. I don't think they can afford to put an onerous microtransaction scheme in any game going forward. They need to re-earn gamers' trust again. So I hope they're sobered by this experience and learn from it. But I think they're smart people, so I'm sure they will do the right thing going forward. We'll see." Yeah, I don't know about smart. Nothing about how they handled Battlefront 2 was smart in any way, shape, or form. Devious? Absolutely. Smart? Not so much. But I absolutely agree that EA is very much on probation and that all eyes are on them in 2018. They most certainly cannot afford to implement insidious microtransactions and loot boxes moving forward. Their reputation is currently at an all-time low, and the loot boxes are now at the forefront of gaming discussion. Not to mention that the stigmatization of loot boxes is at an all-time high. Their egregious implementation in games was contentious enough in 2017 that several presenters at the Game Awards actively spoke out against them at the event. If EA intends to get through 2018 and beyond without sullying what little remains of their reputation further, they have to take a step back. They have to learn from their mistakes and back off on their greedy antics. But honestly, after everything I've seen, I can't say that I'm optimistic on Anthem's prospects. I believe that as long as Andrew Wilson, one of the most apathetic and devious figures in the gaming industry, remains CEO of EA, I just can't see their tactics changing anytime soon. I'd love nothing more than to be proven wrong. I really want Anthem to be good, but in my eyes, the writing's on the wall with this one. The year is still young though. All we can do for now is wait and see what happens. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this video informative, and if you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon to help this channel stay independent and self-sustained. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.